Indiana News Desk is made possible in part by Maller Grodner Attorneys, providing legal services to clients and the community. Understanding, expertise, results. Bloomington and Indianapolis. LawMG.com. IU Center for Rural Engagement, extending IU Bloomington resources to improve Hoosier lives in partnerships with communities and organizations. rural.indiana.edu. Smithville Fiber Internet Security Solutions and Voice in Southern Indiana. More information at smithville.com. Bunger and Robertson Attorneys at Law, utilizing 75 years of experience, knowledge, and resources to help individuals and families recover in personal injury matters. Information at lawbr.com. And by WTIU members. Thank you.
Coming up on Indiana News Desk, protests at Indiana University demanding divestiture from Israel and supporting a ceasefire in Gaza continue into their second week. The response to the protests by IU President Pamela Whitten and her administration has been met with calls for her resignation.
The way that Whitten's administration has responded to the movement has been just like another egregious violation of shared governance, of academic freedom on campus.
Ahead, we examine the issues behind the protests and the relationship between Whitten and IU's faculty. And Election Day is Tuesday. One primary drawing a lot of attention is the GOP House race for District 45. We'll have these stories, plus the latest news from across the state right now on Indiana News Desk. Welcome to Indiana News Desk. I'm Perry Metz, sitting in for Joe Wren, who's covering the Bloomington annexation trial. Protests on IU's Bloomington campus against the war in Gaza have entered their second week. Things have settled down after an initial crackdown by IU and Indiana State Police last week led to almost 60 arrests. But passions remain high as protesters continue to make their voices heard. Today, they've gathered outside Assembly Hall, where we're joined by our Ethan Sandweiss.
Hello, Perry. There's a small group of protesters, around 30 faculty, down by the entrance of the parking lot, but up here by Assembly Hall, things are pretty calm. It's mostly families, graduates, people in robes. My colleagues and I have been covering this all week. We've been at the protest day and night, and here's a little bit of what we've seen.
Protests started last week with demonstrators calling on IU to divest from Israel, end its research partnership with the Crane Naval Base, and remove President Pamela Whitten and Provost Rahul Srivastava from leadership. People have been camping there since Thursday.
So I've slept here one night in total, but stay here till 4 a.m. every other night, except the night it rained because I had my dog. But it's been wonderful every time I've been here. I felt so supported, and I've never felt so connected to the community of Bloomington.
The protest coincides with others at college campuses across America. Many remained peaceful, others have resulted in violent encounters with the police. The protests at IU remained organized this week with teach-ins, speeches, and music. During the day, demonstrators hung out on the grass. That's a big change from last week, when IU invited the Indiana State Police to enforce a no-tents order passed the night before. They arrived heavily armed and arrested 57 on Thursday and Saturday. Some community members were alarmed by what appeared to be a sharpshooter placed atop a nearby building. ISP Chief Doug Carter confirmed a sniper perch in his interview with WTIU.
The Overwatch locations that gives us the ability to pay attention to what's occurring overhead, not eye to eye, not laterally on the field, is that Overwatch from above. That got turned into a close sniper position. Could it have become that? Yes. Was that our intent? No.
Carter says his department's response was based on anti-Semitic hate speech he heard at the rally. However, he was unable to provide any examples and said that observations by Jewish participants to the contrary were anecdotal. I asked Carter what line speech would have to cross to become criminal.
The understanding of the First Amendment is not endless. It's not endless, and I'll just leave it at that.
Protesters largely blamed IU President Pamela Whitten for inviting state police and for the last-minute policy change that was cited during arrests.
The way that Whitten's administration has responded to the movement has been just like another egregious violation of shared governance, of academic freedom on campus.
IU denied our request for an interview, but Whitten sent an email Sunday that unregulated encampments raise concerns and have become magnets for those making threats of violence or who may not have the best interest of Indiana University in mind. Protesters drafted a resignation letter for Whitten and delivered it to Bryan Hall, but building doors were locked.
I'd like to offer my apologies to everyone who cares about the past, present, and future of Indiana University, and wish you all the best in rebuilding its reputation. Sincerely, Pamela Whitten.
They then crossed campus to Bryan House, the president's on-campus home, chanting pro-Palestinian slogans.
Ethan, what are protesters most upset about at this point? I'm hearing criticism of the IU administration, but these started as a pro-Palestinian protest.
If you talk to the people who are leading these protests, you'll still hear that Gaza is the bottom line. They're really concerned about Israel's ties to the Crane Naval Base, investments in Israel, and they are, yes, also calling for the resignation of the president and the provost. I think, though, that this police response has really catalyzed the movement, and you have a lot of faculty now and other students getting involved because they're worried about freedom of speech on campus.
What's the police presence like today?
Honestly, I haven't seen a whole lot of police around here. There were 2 Ellettsville PD squad cars and some other police vehicles I wasn't able to identify on the road, but so far it appears to be fairly minimal.
All right, thank you, Ethan. We're joined now by Ellie Cohen, a member of the Board of Directors of Congregation Beth Shalom here in Bloomington. She is appearing on behalf of the board. Ellie, as we heard earlier, protesters have objected to both university investments in Israel, and they're worried about the Palestinian cause. How do you respond to this?
Yeah, thanks for having me on the show. Again, on behalf of the board of directors of the congregation, I think the important thing to highlight is that we really, as a community, have a really wide range of responses to that question. And our community really, they really vary in where they stand on these kind of overlapping issues that we're seeing in the protest movement right now. I think we absolutely have members who support some sort of divestment from Israel. We have members who support calls for a ceasefire. We have members who have been at the encampment and spending time there, both as protesters and also as especially faculty concerned about their students. But we also have many members who do not support those ideas, right? We have members who were at the Chabad House with their, with Israeli flags.
We're seeing a lot of younger Jews at these protests supporting the Palestinian cause. What do you make of that?
Yeah, I mean, I think in general, right, we always see kind of younger people taking up these more progressive causes. I will say a lot of those younger people, especially the graduate students and college students, are not members of the synagogue per se, but it makes sense to me that younger people are taking this up. I will say again, we've had older members on, I don't like saying both sides because I think there's more than 2 sides, but we've had older members and younger members both at the Chabad House, at the anti-Hamas rally that was organized, I think, yesterday, as well as members who are at the encampment, and then members who are choosing not to get involved.
Well, one question that has come up, 2 questions nationwide: can one criticize Israel without being critical of Jews?
Sure.
And along the same line, can one support Palestinians without being pro-Hamas?
Sure, and I think that's a really tough question, and one that we're going to spend a lot of time trying to unpack. I would like to think, just like we can criticize a government, we can criticize our own American government without being anti-American, that we can criticize any government without being anti-Semitic or Palestinian.
Oh, thank you. We appreciate your perspective. Sure. That was Ellie Cohen, a member of the board of directors of Beth Shalom, the temple here in Bloomington. IU President Pamela Whitten issued a statement last Sunday to the university community. In it, she said the police presence was needed because unregulated camps raise concerns and may attract people intent on violence. Whitten confirmed that her office made the call to Indiana State Police for additional backup on campus, which led to clashes with protesters. Of those arrested, one was charged today with battery felony against a public safety official. That's a level 6 felony. As Aubrey Wright reports, this all comes just a couple weeks after Bloomington faculty attending a campus-wide meeting overwhelmingly cast a vote of no confidence in Whitten and other IU administrators.
Campus protests of the war in Israel and Palestine began about 2 weeks after faculty overwhelmingly declared no confidence in President Pamela Whitten and other IU administrators. Faculty members were among the 57 arrested last week. Education professor Barbara Dennis was one of them. She says the rally was energetic and engaging.
I kept saying to him, stop touching me, stop pushing me, I'm not hurting you, I'm not doing anything to you. You're on the wrong side. You have weapons at a peaceful demonstration. Don't push me.
She was charged with misdemeanor criminal trespass and banned from campus, but the ban was written incorrectly and she returned to campus. Many faculty and staff have expressed outrage at the administration's violent response to the protest. State troopers arrived armed, carrying riot shields and batons. They came with tear gas. Protesters were chased and thrown to the ground before being taken away in IU buses. Along with hundreds of faculty, students, and staff, Dennis showed up at Bryan Hall this week to demand the resignation of Whitten, the provost, and a vice provost.
I'm not going to let somebody with weapons get closer to my students. Who would do that?
Bloomington Faculty Council President Colin Johnson says faculty are more upset than before the no confidence vote. The vote was supposed to advise the Board of Trustees, who hired Whitten. Johnson wrote in an open letter that Whitten's administration should end after manipulating university policy at the last minute and then calling the police.
Little did we know that our own administration had conspired behind our backs without our knowledge to amend that policy which has stood since 1969.
Chris Daly with the ACLU of Indiana says that college campuses should be the heart and soul of free speech. He says it seems the policy was changed for a viewpoint-specific reason, to stop a pro-Palestine protest.
None of the actions by the university or the Indiana State Police seem to be aligned with our free speech principles in this country.
Faculty in the College of Arts and Sciences, IU's largest academic unit, passed a resolution calling on the trustees to remove Whitten and repeal the policy change. Several Bloomington schools have passed similar resolutions. Not all faculty and staff support the protesters. A group called IU Faculty and Staff for Israel says it's received reliable reports that behavior of some protesters had crossed over to targeted harassment of Jewish students. That's a claim protesters in another group of Jewish IU faculty, students, and alumni deny.
The first thing I would say is pay attention. You'll hear them. The second thing is make sure you understand the meaning of the things that are being said.
Faculty and staff are continuing to organize. Some are planning a walkout or other protests at IU's commencement ceremonies this weekend. The call for Whitten's administration to end continues. Professor Abdulkader Sino says the trustees have two options: continue to support Whitten or move on with a new president.
Dear trustees, please consider option number 2. Please let Pamela go.
For Indiana News Desk, I'm Aubrey Wright.
Now, the newsroom has made numerous attempts to get a comment from IU's Board of Trustees or President Whitten's office, but they have not responded as of this broadcast. Today, the ACLU of Indiana sued the university on behalf of protesters who have been banned from campus following their arrests. The Bloomington City Council voted unanimously to override Mayor Kerry Thompson's veto of its resolution calling for a ceasefire in Gaza. Council member Dave Rollo co-sponsored the resolution, and he said that resolutions like this are more effective if more communities pass them.
It serves as a conduit to people who are in positions that can make a difference, that are responsible directly, and we have to hold them accountable.
The override came on the 7th day of Gaza solidarity protests on Indiana University's Dunn Meadow. Although people could not comment directly on the ceasefire resolution last night, they condemned IU's actions and police intervention.
What we have seen is militarized groups, militarized troopers come and silence our voices at our university. We have seen the administration actually not take the seriousness of what's going on campus and in people of Gaza.
Bloomington police have not been involved in the protests on campus. The Bloomington City Council continues to explore changing its process for public comment. The council held a work session last night to discuss this topic following hate speech at its April 3rd meeting. Council President Isabel Piedmont Smith says the council will immediately condemn any hateful comments from now on, but this isn't the end of the conversation.
You're cutting out huge swaths of people who can't be there, people who may have mobility issues or transportation issues or childcare issues or work issues.
The council also wants to reduce commenters' time limit to 3 minutes for public comment on items not on the council agenda. The current limit is 5 minutes. Coming up next on Indiana News Desk. The Republican House race for District 45 is a rematch of the 2022 race, but this year a third candidate will be on the ballot. And an 85-year-old man will be running in the Indianapolis Mini Marathon for a 47th time this weekend. These stories and more right here on Indiana News Desk.
I need you to see something. So pleased to hear that.
Finally, some good news. Some people spend a lifetime trying to find someone like you. This is a future we are more than happy to embrace.
I've never felt a love so strong in my entire life.
I promise you, this is something that they're not going to be able to ignore.
We loved it.
Welcome back to Indiana News Desk. An engineering consultant says Monroe County should build a new jail with 450 to 500 beds instead of renovating the current 294-bed facility. That's the main takeaway from a $40,000 feasibility study by RQAW Corporation, approved last year by the county commissioners. Sheriff Ruben Marte says he does not want to fill every bed, but a new jail needs to have more space.
If we have another pandemic, God forbid, we have to separate people. We have to have the space to do that. We have to have the beds to do that.
A feasibility study is a step toward building a new jail as required by state law. After rejecting several jail sites, county commissioners are now looking at privately owned land between State Road 46 and Arlington Road northwest of city limits. Monroe County and the city of Bloomington cleared 3 encampments where people experiencing homelessness were living on Wednesday. At least 10 makeshift tents, multiple sleeping bags, and other items were visible from the Beeline Trail near one of the encampments by Switchyard Park. The city gave a month's notice to service providers and people at the encampments for the May 1 eviction.
Most people cleared out voluntarily well in advance of the deadline today, and are moving on to other places, unfortunately.
Gilmore says that in early April, about 30 to 40 people were living at the 2 encampments south of Switchyard. The primary election is this Tuesday, but with no city elections on the ballot, the attention is on state and county races. One GOP race that is drawing attention is House District 45, which encompasses all of Greene and Sullivan counties and part of Davies, Knox, and Vigo counties. We're joined now by Clayton Baumgarth for more on the race.
Thank you, Perry. District 45, when District 45 was redrawn in 2020, it led to 2 incumbent state House representatives facing off, Bruce Borders and Jeff Ellington. Borders won that race by more than 500 votes. Ellington is challenging Borders again this year, but this time a third candidate, Knox County Commissioner Kelly Streeter, is also running. I asked them what they thought were the biggest issues this time around.
Government is out of control. We're getting overtaxed at the gas pump. They just put a sneaky gas tax in the budget last year with no public comment. And we had enough dollars there at the pump already paying for roads and bridges with a 20-year plan, and we still have 16 years left on that. Property taxes are out of control. There's too many loopholes. They reorganized that about 18 to 20 years ago, and it seems like the assessor can come into your community, to your home, your business, and give you a reassessment and your taxes go up. I'm here to change that. Lower gas tax, cap, and lower property taxes, and reorganize it. And the other candidates are not talking about that, nor are they willing. They want more money for road projects that have to deal with Indianapolis. I want our dollars to stay here for the Wabash Valley and District 45, to make those improvements here to benefit the people of this district.
There's going to be much discussion around how are we going to fund roads and bridges and drainage and other safety issues on our systems in Indiana. And I intend to make sure that counties, if bills must be crafted to make sure we have that fair share, because we have more roads, more bridges in worse shape than the state of Indiana as a whole. So also healthcare reform and having access to mental health, behavioral health, and even OB services in rural Indiana. We're seeing more and more retiring. We're seeing less and less coming out of schools just like this and going into rural health care because of larger corporate systems having the greater ability to hire. I think we need to look at programs we've done great in the trades and supporting trades in Indiana, but now we need to look back at some of those skilled workers like teachers and like nurses and like physicians. And I would like to look at programs to assist with putting more in that pipeline.
Inflation is a huge issue for people, and it's massive, whether it be just in their groceries or whether it be on their their home payments, whatever. I mean, it's just a big issue. But some of the issues that we're facing as a state, which would also impact the people of District 45. We all use I-70, whether we like it or not. We all use it, and I-70 is going to need to be rebuilt. I mean, there's no question about that. In fact, it needs to go all the way down to the clay. We do need to add at least one lane in each direction, both east and west, and we're talking from the west side of the state to the east side of the state. And we've got right now there's a study committee being led by Jeff Thompson, the chairman of Ways and Means, that's looking at the way to be able to fund it and build it. And again, all of us as Hoosiers are impacted by that. Another major issue is helping our children to catch up on lost education. And what I mean by that, if you look back at the COVID crisis that we had, the pandemic, I mean, in essence, our children literally missed out on 2 years of education.
Find my complete interviews with all three candidates on our website at WTIUnews.org.
Thanks, Clayton. For most people, finishing just one marathon is a big achievement. But for 85-year-old Eugene Lausch, competing in his 47th mini marathon will be just another day. Grace Morocco has this.
There I am with a brown beard then and brown hair.
Now a retired lawyer, Lausch has ran more One America 500 mini marathons than nearly everyone else. It's a hobby that came to him almost by accident.
I desperately wanted to be an athlete when I was a boy, and like every Hoosier lad, I wanted to be a basketball player, but I don't have good hand-eye coordination.
So he picked up running and eventually began coaching track at St. Richard Episcopal School. Now he continues to walk 23 miles a week.
It is a big part of my lifestyle, so I don't prepare in any particular way. I do a considerable amount of outside activity and gardening and things like that I think also helps keep me fit.
And even though Lausch is in better shape than most 85-year-olds, it hasn't always been easy. In 2019, he was struck by a vehicle while crossing the street.
It was determined pretty quickly that my hip was fractured.
The accident almost kept him out of the mini marathon. That was until the community, including his granddaughter, gave him the push that he needed.
I ended up walking 7.1 miles and then being pushed for 6 one-mile segments.
Lausch's granddaughter and runners he's coached in the past took turns pushing him in a cart. Now it's one of Lausch's favorite memories of the marathon.
I don't think I really understood it before that. It's more about not necessarily winning. It's more about taking the assets you have and kind of making the best of your circumstance.
For Indiana News Desk, I'm Grace Morocco.
I admire that. That's the end of this program, but our work continues online at WTIUnews.org. Have a great weekend.
Indiana News Desk is made possible in part by Maller Grodner Attorneys, providing legal services to clients and the community. Understanding, expertise, results. Bloomington and Indianapolis. LawMG.com. IU Center for Rural Engagement, extending IU Bloomington resources to improve Hoosier lives in partnerships with communities and organizations. Rural.indiana.edu. Smithville Fiber Internet Security Solutions and Voice in Southern Indiana. More information at smithville.com. Bunger and Robertson Attorneys at Law, utilizing 75 years of experience, knowledge, and resources to help individuals and families recover in personal injury matters. Information at lawbr.com. And by WTIU members. Thank you.